something. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. Oh, please say to me, let me be your man. And please say to me, you let me hold your hand. Now let me hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. And when I touch you, I feel happy inside. It's such a feeling that my love I can hide, I can hide, I can hide. Yeah, you got that something I think you'll understand. When I say that something, I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. And when I touch you, I feel happy inside. It's such a feeling that my love I can hide, I can hide, I can hide. Yeah, you got that something I think you'll understand. When I feel that something, I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand.
I have it from a reliable source that 500,000 advance orders have been made for the Beatles' latest single release, She Loves You. It looks as though it could well be 3 number ones in a row for the Liverpool boys.
Well, she loves you. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, 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 yeah. Lost your love. Well, I saw her yesterday. The truth she's thinking of. And she told me what to say. She said she loves you. And you know that can be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She said you had. She almost lost her mind. Now she says she knows you're not the hurting kind. She said she loves you, and you know that can be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. You know it's up to you. I think it's only fair. I can hurt you too. Apologize to her because she loves you, and you know that can be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. You know you should be glad. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart.
NBC Nightly News. With John Chancellor in New York, Chief Washington Correspondent Roger Mudd, and tonight's special segment, Part 2 of our report, Moscow's Secret Stealers.
Good evening. Millions of people mourned the tragic death of John Lennon today. The young and the middle-aged shared a sense of grief over the inexplicable slaying of Lennon, murdered by a young man who had been a fan of Lennon and the Beatles for the last 15 years. The killing took place last night as Lennon and his wife, Yoko Ono, were entering their Manhattan apartment house called the Dakota. Crowds gathered soon after, and many just stayed outside. Stephen Fraser reports.
They kept a vigil all day, making a shrine of the Dakota, where John Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono owned 5 apartments. Some mourners brought bouquets. Former Beatle Ringo Starr flew from Europe to console Lennon's wife and their 5-year-old son. The crowd stood just a few feet from the archway near where Lennon was shot. Witnesses said a gunman followed the Lennons as they got out of a limousine and walked past the Dakota's huge iron gate.
This individual, Mr. Chapman, came up behind him and called to him, Mr. Lennon, as he arrived at that doorway. And then in a combat stance, he emptied the Charter Arms .38 caliber gun that he had with him and shot John Lennon.
Lennon died before police could get him to a hospital 1 mile away. His attacker made no attempt to flee. He was arrested at the Dakota and was moved under heavy guard because of fears for his safety. Police say he is Mark David Chapman, 25, who came to New York a week ago. He stayed at a YMCA and had been asking questions about Lennon. Just 6 hours before the shooting, Chapman is said to have asked Lennon to autograph the album cover of Double Fantasy, a recording Lennon had completed after 5 years in seclusion. Chapman entered no plea when he was charged with Lennon's murder late today. He was sent to a hospital for psychiatric examination and will be watched around the clock in case he tries to commit suicide. An assistant district attorney told the court Chapman borrowed a large amount of money and came to New York with the sole intention of killing John Lennon. Stephen Fraser, NBC News, New York.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. Continuing coverage of the war on terrorism. Reporting tonight from Kabul, Afghanistan, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening from Kabul, Afghanistan.
Another major story tonight is the passing of George Harrison. The former Beatle died in Los Angeles from cancer, his family by his side. He was 58 years old. Harrison's life and music reached for the same notes, inner strength and inner peace, and struck a chord with millions. CBS's Mark Phillips reports on the death and life of George Harrison.
There's a Beatles song for just about every occasion.
I read the news today, oh boy.
And today, the news was bad. They gathered at the John Lennon Memorial in New York to mark the death of another Beatle. And then there were 2. George Harrison's death, unlike Lennon's, was neither sudden, nor violent, nor shocking. His religious conviction, he had said, expressed in his first solo hit single, had prepared him for death. Of all the Beatles, George Harrison hadn't been the brash one, or the cute one, or the funny one. He'd been the thoughtful one, seeking not fame, but answers.
The purpose of life is to find out who am I, why am I here, and where am I going? That's what we need answering.
And Harrison, as his friends knew, had found those answers.
I'm just privileged to have known him, and I love him like he's my brother. It was a very sad day for me and for a lot of other people.
It's a big cigarette for a big man.
George Harrison had had throat, then lung, then brain cancer. The cigarette gags, amusing when he was young, had long since stopped being funny. The man they called the reluctant Beatle is now getting the credit he is due. He was the musical backbone. His were the riffs the whole world played air guitar to. He led the group on its journey toward Eastern mysticism, And he, too, was the songwriter of enduring tunes. Even Sinatra called Something the best love song of the past 50 years. If the Beatles provided the soundtrack for a generation, Harrison provided the theme songs for his own life.
All things must pass. It doesn't take long to be from 17 to being 57. 40 years just goes like that.
In his life, George Harrison never saw himself as more than he was, a working-class rocker from Liverpool who was good enough and lucky enough to become famous around the world. More than guitars are gently weeping today. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.